Racing pigeon droppings typically contain the following. Uric acid, this is the white portion of pigeon poop. Uric acid is the major metabolic product of protein digestion in birds. It is analogous to the urea found in mammalian urine. Fecal matter, the darker portion of pigeon droppings contains the actual fecal matter, which is the undigested contents of the digestive tract. This includes waste, bacteria, fibers, and other indigestible components. Calcium and phosphorus, racing pigeons need additional calcium and phosphorus to support egg laying and growth. These minerals get excreted out in their droppings. Here are some tips for making high-quality compost from racing pigeon droppings. Making high-quality compost from racing pigeon droppings takes some careful planning and preparation to get the carbon-nitrogen ratio, moisture content, aeration, and temperatures right. But the high nutrient content of pigeon manure makes it an excellent addition that can be converted into rich, dark compost through proper active composting methods. Why make compost from racing pigeon droppings? Racing pigeons are very efficiently digesting birds that produce concentrated droppings as a waste product. Because they feed on energy-dense grain diets comprised mainly of corn, wheat, peas and rice that are digested and absorbed almost completely, their manure contains less volume than other manures but more nutrients. In fact, because less than 5% of the original organic matter gets excreted as droppings, pigeon manure can have nitrogen levels 2 to 3 times higher than chicken manure and 4 to 8 times higher than cattle manure once it has been composted. So while you may not have piles of material to start with, what you have is very nutrient dense. This high level of plant-available nitrogen, as well as phosphorus and potassium, as racing pigeon droppings also contain considerable calcium phosphate, makes actively composted pigeon manure an excellent organic fertilizer and soil amendment that can be worked into garden beds and enrich soils with vital nutrients. It can potentially replace the need for chemical fertilizers which can then leach out from soils. Getting started with racing pigeon dropping compost. While the small volume of racing pigeon droppings makes it feasible to compost even in urban home environments, as you can collect manure without huge piles accumulating, here are some guidelines to get started. Choosing a composting location. Select an outdoor location such as a corner of your yard or under an open shed or roof eaves that is convenient for collecting manure droppings. Has good drainage and runoff control. Is sheltered from too much rain or snow. Provides easy access for you to mix and tend the pile. Compost bin versus heaping. You can contain pigeon manure compost in an existing garden compost bin with slats or wire sides and a lid or tarp cover if desired. Or you can build an open pile or enclosure for the compost. Having more volume and airflow space is beneficial. But racing pigeon manure compost can work very effectively even in smaller vessels like 5-gallon buckets with drainage holes drilled in the bottom and occasional stirring. Preparing a base layer. Establish an initial 8 to 12-inch base layer of low nitrogen carbon materials at the bottom of the bin or pile area to provide structure and airflow. Use materials like chopped straw, dry dead leaves, pine shavings or sawdust, small wood chips or twigs, shredded corn cobs. Mixing in the manure. Collect fresh pigeon droppings before they accumulate, as the fresher the better. Layer the manure in thin layers interspersed with the carbon materials. Mix to attain an overall CN ratio of 25 to 30 to 1. For racing pigeon manure which contains about 30 pounds of nitrogen per yard 3, mix roughly 2 parts carbon to 1 part manure by volume. The carbon materials will also reduce odor from the high ammonia content of the fresh droppings. If the manure seems too dry, you can moisten it or mix in a little green plant material like lawn clippings to raise the moisture level. Optimal starting compost moisture content is around 50 to 60%. Turning the pile. Turn and mix all layers of the compost pile thoroughly on a weekly basis, adding water as needed to replenish moisture. This aerates the pile to facilitate the composting process so beneficial bacteria can break down the manure quickly. Use a pitchfork, compost tumbler, or utilize piles that allow turning by shovel to remix all contents back together. Turning weekly can accelerate compost completion. Monitoring temperatures. The internal temperature of actively decomposing racing pigeon manure compost will climb steadily, likely reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit if properly constructed and mixed. Temperatures may easily reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit to 160 degrees Fahrenheit with efficient turning. You want temperatures to exceed 130 degrees Fahrenheit for several weeks to kill potential pathogens, weed seeds and fly larvae in the manure. Quick temperature spikes above 160 degrees Fahrenheit are acceptable as well. Install a compost thermometer probe into the center of the pile to monitor the process. Adjust moisture and turning frequency if temperatures drop below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Finishing the compost. After 2 to 3 months of regular turning and monitored heating, the compost should reach full maturity, indicated when temperatures cool back to near ambient air temperatures. The pile no longer reheats after turning. Texture is dark, crumbly, and soil-like. The manure odor disappears, replaced by a rich earthy smell. At full maturity, the volume will reduce considerably as organic mass is consumed by bacteria, leaving behind nutritive humus. Curing the compost. Before using as fertilizer, allow the finished compost to cure for 1 to 2 weeks undisturbed to stabilize. Then do a final screening, removing any larger bits of twigs or uncomposted pieces, which can go back into a new compost batch to break down further. The completed compost will now be a dark brown to black material with a crumbly texture that can be worked into soil beds as an organic garden amendment or packed around the base of plants as a slow-release fertilizer. What can affect racing pigeon manure composting? Temperature. Composting slows considerably below 50 degrees Fahrenheit or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Best composting occurs between 60 degrees to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Pile temperature should self-regulate. Oxygen flow. Weekly turning provides needed oxygen for aerobic bacterial decomposition. Moisture level. Aim for 40 to 60% moisture. Pile should feel damp but not wet. CN ratio. Balance manure nitrogen with 25 to 30 times the carbon content from bedding. Particle size. Chop or shred larger pieces into 1 to 2 inch materials to speed composting. pH value. Most backyard compost maintains a pH between 6.5 to 8, acceptable for plant nutrients. Troubleshooting problems. Pile doesn't heat, remoisten, turn to add oxygen if pile temperature fails to climb after 1 to 2 weeks. Bad odors, increase turning frequency, add more carbon materials, monitor moisture levels. Slow compost, check moisture and temperatures. Turn and remix materials. May take longer in cool weather. Flies and pests, cover pile with layer of carbon materials, keep an ear out for buzzing. Having a well-managed and monitored racing pigeon manure compost allows all the protein and mineral value of pigeon droppings to get converted through microbial digestion into a stabilized form of nitrogen fertilizer and carbon-rich soil organic matter. Making your own compost enables you to produce a high-grade organic garden amendment tailored to your growing needs. There are many reasons to buy my racing pigeon method. Here are some of the best reasons. You will get excellent results. It's a very simple system to use. It's affordable. I have had over 400 first prize winners. It's adaptable to any situation. You can use it with any racing method, natural, widowhood, young birds. It's a very effective method. There is no need to spend a lot of money on fancy pigeon products. It's a reliable system and it is foolproof to use. Professional athletes, race horses, take the same products. There is science behind this, not just hearsay. It is all to do with red blood cells and oxygen in the blood. Without that, a pigeon will not race well, or an athlete will not win a race. If he has low oxygen in his blood, the above is fact and is 100% science. There are a few things you can do to improve your chances of winning at racing pigeons. One of the most important things is to learn as much as you can about the sport. You'll need to know the different types of pigeons, how to train them, and how to race them. Another key factor is practice. You'll need to be able to fly your pigeons competently in order to win races. And, of course, you'll need to have the funds to invest in racing pigeons and other racing equipment.